Josh, I think it is important to recognize that this is my #1 priority. I've got a lot of things on my plate, but my top priority is to defeat ISIL and to eliminate the scourge of this barbaric terrorism that's been taking place around the world. And we see high-profile attacks in Europe, but they're also killing Muslims throughout the Middle East, people who are innocent, people who are guilty only of worshiping Islam in a different way than this organization. They are poisoning the minds of young people everywhere, not just in Europe, but in the United States and undoubtedly in Argentina. People are looking on these websites. So there's no more important item on my agenda than going after them and defeating them. The issue is, how do we do it in an intelligent way? And our approach has been continuously to adjust to see what works and what doesn't. What has been working is the airstrikes that we're taking on their leadership, on their infrastructure, on their financial systems. What has been working is special operators partnering with Iraqi security forces and going after leadership networks and couriers and disrupting the connection between their bases in Raqqa and their bases in Mosul. We've recovered, taken away from ISIL about 40% of their territory. And ISIL's leadership has been hunkered down, and we are going to continue to press on them until we have driven them out of their strongholds and until they're destroyed. While we are doing that, we're also extraordinarily vigilant about preventing attacks in our homeland and working with our allies to prevent attacks in places like Europe. But as I've said before, this is difficult work. It's not because we don't have the best and the brightest working on it. It's not because we are not taking the threat seriously. It is because it's challenging to find, identify very small groups of people who are willing to die themselves and can walk into a crowd and detonate a bomb. And my charge to my team is to find every strategy possible to successfully reduce the risk of such terrorist attacks, even as we go after their beating heart in places like Iraq and Syria. And as our strategy evolves and we see additional opportunities, we will go after it. But what we don't do, and what we should not do, is take approaches that are going to be counterproductive. So when I hear somebody saying we should carpet bomb Iraq or Syria, not only is that inhumane, not only is that contrary to our values, but that would likely be an extraordinary mechanism for ISIL to recruit more people willing to die and explode bombs in an airport or in a metro station. That's not a smart strategy. As far as what some candidates have said, I think I've been very clear on this. One of the great strengths of the United States, and part of the reason why we have not seen more attacks in the United States, is we have a extraordinarily successful, patriotic, integrated Muslim American community. They do not feel ghettoized. They do not feel isolated. Their children are our children's friends, going to the same schools. They are our colleagues in our workplaces. They are our men and women in uniform, fighting for our freedom. And so any approach that would single them out or target them for discrimination is not only wrong and un-American, but it also would be counterproductive because it would reduce the strength, the antibodies that we have to resist terrorism. As far as the notion of having surveillance of neighborhoods where Muslims are present, I just left a country that engages in that kind of neighborhood surveillance, which, by the way, the father of Senator Cruz escaped for America, the land of the free. The notion that we would start down that slippery slope makes absolutely no sense. It's contrary to who we are. And it's not going to help us defeat ISIL. Last point I'll make on this, I understand when we see the sight of these kinds of attacks, our hearts bleed because we know that could be our children, that could be our family members or our friends or our co-workers who travel to a place like Brussels. And it scares the American people. And it horrifies me. I've got 2 young daughters who are growing up a little too fast, and I want them to have the freedom to move and to travel around the world without the possibility that they'd be killed. So I understand why this is the top priority of the American people, and I want them to understand this is my top priority as well. It is the top priority of my national security team. It is the top priority of our military. It is the top priority of our intelligence officers. It is the top priority of our diplomats. But we are approaching this in a way that has a chance of working, and it will work. And we're not going to do things that are counterproductive simply because it's political season. We're going to be steady, we're going to be resolute, and ultimately we're going to be successful.
Excuse me, but I don't think that it will help in any sense that I advance any opinion about what we are going to find. Let's wait, study the documentation, and then we can do some comments on it. Thank you.
Seguidamente,
La Nación newspaper.
In Spanish. Queríamos preguntarle cuál es.
We would like to ask you what you think is or was the role of the United States during the dictatorships that the region experienced.
Again, that was President Obama speaking at a joint press conference alongside Argentine President Mauricio Macri. And he did, in fact, take a question regarding his policy and views on the fight with ISIS. And while saying that it was his top priority to eliminate the scourge of barbaric terrorism happening around the world, he also acknowledged it's difficult work. He said that he asked his team to find every strategy possible, even as they go after the beating heart of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and then somewhat derisively, in fact, referred to Senator Ted Cruz's proposal to carpet bomb ISIS into oblivion, and in fact invoked Cruz's father's Cuban heritage in also calling into question Cruz's proposal yesterday to proactively police Muslim American neighborhoods, saying that such an idea makes absolutely no sense. Again, if there is further news from this press conference, we will have it for you. Meanwhile, keep it here. CBSN. It's always on.